Hey, welcome back to the Conscious Environment Podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in. This week, I got a chance to sit back down with Walt Way, the founder of the Bristor English Project, and we got a chance to talk about, again, Black history and ancestry in the Black community, how to find each other, how our ancestors tried to find each other, some tips and tricks on how to really efficiently use Ancestry.com or any of the DNA sites or anything like that. And then we just kind of told some of our favorite stories from Black history. So we recorded this at the end of February, and it was just a good time to talk about, Black History Month and, what that all means. So if you're talking about Black history, it being Black History Month, that's because it was kind of the end of the month there. But I hope you guys enjoy the conversation. I've been following you for a bit. You got some big things coming?
Whew, yeah. Just had my podcast interview with Seton Hall a couple days ago. Princeton had reached out to me about the book I reviewed. They liked it so much. Ruha Benjamin actually put me on her Twitter, Instagram, followed me all over the place. So that's been kind of like a wow moment. And then just the project is doing great on Instagram with the videos. For whatever reason, it's doing amazing. Like, you'll think TikTok had me thinking I was making bad content, but it's doing amazing over there, and it's catching a lot of eyes now. So
that's awesome. That's awesome.
Can't wait.
So wait a second. Wait. Just back up a second. You said Princeton, but I think my headphone messed up.
Nah,
it sounded like you said Princeton, but that's like the University Princeton?
Yes.
You can't just slide past that like you ain't say what you just said, man.
Yeah, they slid into my DMs and blew my mind. The Princeton Press slid into my DMs on Instagram. Was like, hey, would you be interested in, reviewing the book for us? And that question was like, yeah, sure, I don't mind doing that, but can I mention the project? Can I, because they talked about my project to me, so they reviewed who I was, and I was like, can I at least mention the project? They said, sure. I did the video. They love it. The email I got afterwards was like, we would love to work with you in the future again. Select any book that we have and we'll send it to you. And
man, that is an amazing blessing. I am so I love just seeing everybody, everyone's growth, man.
Yes.
And yours is just, it's so much fun to watch.
Thank you.
Everybody come for everybody, but it's like you're such a humble dude, and this all started because you were just like, hey, I figured out how to do this. Let me show y'all how to do this.
Yeah.
And let me pass on the information. And now it's grown into just something, and it can't stop, won't stop, man.
I love it. It's just like, no matter what's been thrown at me, the project still prevails. You can say I got all the ancestors walking with me. I have a lot of them walking with me now. But
for real, you keep bringing them up, so they're like,
yeah,
all right. That's who we need to talk to. Yes. So for the sake of the podcast and all that, drop me your name, where folks can find you, your handles and all that, and plug the project real quick so folks know what we're talking about.
All right. My name is Walt Way. You can find me everywhere on social media as Walt Way, also known as the former love poet. I'm the founder of the Bristor English Project. I help American descendants of slavery connect with their ancestry through genealogy. I've been working for the last year, and we connected so far. The actual number is 92 Black families to ancestors that they may have not known about or got them a little bit further along in their journey. So yeah, I'm here. I love history. I love genealogy, and I love helping folks.
That's amazing, man. I'm so happy, so proud, man. It's a beautiful thing. All the links will be down below, but all the links in his bio, you got playlists and stuff on TikTok that just basically show you how to do it.
Yeah.
And the information is out there. Are you still taking on personal one-off clients, or
not at the moment? Later this year, I'm gonna create something just for that. But with the direction of projects moving in, I gotta kind of make sure I can structure that before I can start taking in anything, paid or otherwise.
Okay. All right. Cool. 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 But yeah, definitely go check out those playlists if you just want the information, and if you love seeing this man's face. There's a video that he walks you through the whole thing. I started doing it, got to a point, and I was like, I gotta go ask my mama about more names and stuff because
Mhm.
I'm figuring out how to do it, but I'm like, I'm missing some last names or potential last names or
Yeah.
missing some first names, or I kind of remember like for example, like the name Earl runs in my family.
Yeah.
Like everybody be naming, name son after son after son that. So I'm like, is this that person? Were we ever here, or does anybody ever remember family being from this part of the country or some stuff like that? So I've been asking family questions,
Mm.
and a lot of it has just been like, yeah, our great uncle, he was from this little town in Alabama, that. And how did you know, like, how did you know that? That's what a lot of it has been, is like,
Yeah.
how did you know that? Or
Yeah.
how did you figure that out? And I was like, my boy's got all this information just collected together, and I just been scrubbing through the files and stuff like that. I pop in, you're interviewing one of my family. Yeah. And we just, I just been looking up stuff, trying to figure out who's who,
Yeah.
and finding some names. And I get to a little point, and I'm like, does this make sense that it could be this person? But something that me and you talked about the last time that you were on, that I kind of wanted to touch on a little bit, especially because it's Black History Month. We're ending off the month. We talked about jobs and different things. Like, you talked about, like, kind of like one of the wilder things that you found was that, like, people who were enslaved were oftentimes put into like strange jobs. It wasn't just working in the field. Not
Right.
everybody was just picking cotton.
Right.
Some people were working in stores. Some people were working as firefighters. I
Mhm.
think you were saying.
Yep.
Was some of the other like strange ones? I guess firefighter is the one that I was like, what?
Yeah, yeah. The first actual firefighter that was outside of, she was enslaved, was, I think his name was Molly Williams. So like to
Mm,
hear her story and to see what she used to have to pull with just her bare strength, like it's a wild story. But my 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 third great grandfather, Ned English, is Bristor's father. He
mhm.
was a blacksmith, and that made me think,
Oh,
like, since he's a blacksmith and Thomas Cassandra English fought for the Confederacy, did did my third great grandfather have to make weapons, for this man?
yo,
You know what I'm saying? Like, I seen the house and everything where so like did he have to make weapons? And then like you look at certain presidents who, of course, fought and everything. They had a lot of black people as artisans, so they made stuff for them all the time. So artisans, different positions on a boat, as everything but a captain. Just you were either in
right,
the
right.
back, or you were running something, or a ship boy, or whatever it was. I think outside of that, those were some of course, the ones who ran other plantations. Not generally ran them, but worked them. Like smaller, not plantations, but smaller farms. They used to work those a lot.
Right,
That was
right.
just to see those people and see, hey, did the enslaver say, can I keep that? Can my family keep that? And that's where the land came from. Because that's what I think happened with Brister and his
Mm,
family, where he couldn't. If you see how much land Thomas Cassandra owned, he was, I think, the richest enslaver down in Monroe, Alabama. It's almost like
right.
a whole part of a highway. How far you just go down through 50,000, if it's some thousand acres of land, and it just keeps going. And so Bristol, with the land that we got, is still in the family today. And so just to see how
Oh,
when that
wow.
land came off, how quick it came off, it got me thinking. But yeah, definitely blacksmith, and that got my wheels turning for my third great grandfather.
But like when you saying everything but a ship captain, that's kind of making me think of of Robert Smalls.
Mhm.
Like that story of he was working on like a little kind of schooner ship for learned everything that he could, and then eventually during the Civil War he took that ship and he stole it from North Carolina, out of the harbor in North Carolina, and drove it back over Union lines and made it through. I think it's like 3 or 4 checkpoints because he
Yep.
learned all the hand signals and everything to do. But I think the most interesting thing about Robert Smalls is not just like, well, after that he would actually go on to be like a he went to the House of Representatives and he was a senator after the Civil War. But I think the most badass part about him, with like I think it was like 7 or 8 people that he had with him, they rigged the ship with explosives. So if they ever got caught, the whole thing was like, if we get caught, it's a bomb.
It's over.
like
Bigger than Nino
that's
Brown.
it.
Everybody going
They
down.
not taking us back. They not catching us. It's a wrap.
It's
like
over.
it's
Yes.
like we rigged the whole thing. And when I learned that, I was like, man, these dudes, like this was, they were not going back. That was it. They not going back, and they taking everybody in the vicinity with them.
Yes.
If they ever get caught.
Yeah, they knew their fate. They knew their fate. So hey, you're gonna go with them on that time.
Yeah, right. Yeah, we definitely. Somebody's saying in the comments, we definitely do need like a Robert Smalls movie, because I think his character is too. I think he's too heroic. I think people are nervous. They like watching black folk get beat up, but Robert Smalls ain't that story.
No.
Robert Smalls is a story of a man. He was born enslaved, he stole a ship, fought for the Union, and then once they won, he went to the House of Representatives, and then he became a senator, and then he retired.
Yeah.
It's just a good it's just a good story of he overcame, and I think that's super duper interesting. Do you have any records or know anything? Because I think a lot of people don't realize that right after the beginnings of Reconstruction, there was actually more black people in Congress then than there is now. And have you, like, in your research or anything like that, come across, like, I guess, like, how many people there were, or any families related to those people?
I haven't found any people related yet. The closest thing I came to was right after Tulsa, after the massacre in Tulsa. Somebody's second great grandfather. I have a video about it. I forgot where he lived at originally, but he moved to a town near Tulsa. He was like one of a few hundred or 1,200 black lawyers at the time, like out of all of America. So just like, I've seen that, but I haven't seen anybody related to anybody in power yet. It's technically not. It's weird. It's somebody I ran into, technically a black enslaver. One.
Whoa.
I ran into one, and it wasn't like this. The story is their, I think it might have been their fourth or third or fourth great grandfather. He was enslaved. His enslaver's daughter fell in love with him. So she ended up marrying him, and since during the time of the South, you'd be born to the status of your mother. So since she was white, they were born free. But when you look at the slave schedules, it's his name that's on there as the enslaver. Once they got their land and everything else, he was still considered the man of the house. So his name went on everything. And it's, by the time I think 1910, they had 5 generations of free black people in their family. Like, I have like photos of their entire family together, and it looks, you see the black people all throughout that, mixed right in with everybody else. And it's just that's the only thing of power that I've seen. But like at Reconstruction, I haven't found anybody related to someone in Congress just yet.
Yeah, man, that's wild to think about.
Mhm.
Which actually comes into to something that we talked about last time too. That I think a lot of folks don't know because that story sounds more along the lines of they were her property, but
Yes.
just the way that the way that marriage laws ended up working, it
Yeah.
got moved to him. But
Yeah.
there was a lot of women that fought to keep the enslaved that they were given, especially as like
Yes.
dowries or things like that.
Yes.
They fought to keep them as their own property
Yeah.
and stuff like that. I mean, I guess like does that come up? How often does that come up? Like when you're looking through the names, do you see women's names, or do you got to do some digging for stuff like that?
So you'll come across a woman's name. That is not as rare as people think it is. I want to say that it's not as rare as folks think it is. Um, I think I recently put up a video of where I found Miss MS Boyd.
Mm.
And then the way that Ancestry has it when it transcribes the records like digitally, and you're looking at it, all it says is MS Boyd. When you're looking at the actual slave schedule itself, you see, Mrs. MS Boyd, and then I always check the population census afterwards to see how much money they brought in, to see how many people lived with them, to see if
Mm-hmm.
whatever the case could be at the time. Um, but you find them often. The only thing I have to dig for is finding information about them owning enslaving people in more detail because
Mm.
they hit it very very well. They swept it under the rug in a sense where you read about them, they sound like heroes. The Nightingale of the South sounds like a hero. You don't know that she enslaved my friend's family.
Right.
There's
Yeah.
no. Her book is on Amazon. You can buy one of her books. How good of a Confederate hero she was to those boys. No, she had property. She enslaved her own. She enslaved her own people. I come across court documents when it comes to looking for black people, and you can see this black person fighting over the property between the husband and the wife. Not it wasn't at the end of the marriage; it's right at the beginning. She came in and she wanted to keep
Right.
who she considered her property to be. So like I come across it. I come across it a lot more often than people think I do.
And were women winning these cases very often?
Oh yeah, oh yeah. They more likely
Oh,
won than lost. They more likely won than lost in these cases.
wow.
Women was just they was so number one. They was I want to say they was smarter than that man at the time. Like they knew what to do and how to do it. And yeah, they won so many the big one, Madame LaLaurie, out down in Louisiana. Like her husband left her and then took who belonged to him when he divorced her. Like, cause
Mm-hmm.
how bad she was. So, oh yeah, like they were they were just as bad as men, and they were introduced to it at a very young age. So, starting at 5 years old, they were brought to slave auctions. They were taught
Mm.
how to manage a plantation along with the other kids. It wasn't like the even as little girls. It wasn't like they were like, oh, we're gonna keep you nice. No, you're gonna have to learn how to beat these people. You got to learn how to buy these people. You got to learn how to sell these people. You got to learn how to keep these people. So it's hands are just as dirty. I know how like history kind of try to portray them as they on the porch. And, oh my God, I can't. No, they out there whipping. They out there cussing. They out there buying.
Oh man. Yeah, I didn't realize as much. I always thought it was like a little bit like sneakier as far as like as far as like I guess like buying or anything like that goes. Like I didn't realize like I knew that there were like special ones, right? For women sometimes they would have like special auctions or like secret auctions. Like it would be like they would kind of say like household goods or something like that, but like you go and end up being enslaved people there.
Oh,
But was it just like regular enslaved auctions
yeah, just
and they
regular
would
auction.
and women just went raised their hand
Went,
like everybody else?
went
Like,
right in.
I got
They went right in. Like so, I think it might have been Miss Boyd. MS Boyd. If you look at the population census, her overseer lived with her, and his occupation is overseer on the population census. So
Mm.
like these women, some of these women was just they were terrible. And I think one part of it was hey, I got to compete with the men. I got to show the men how bad I am. And how I can do just as much and not if not better at the cost of these black people's lives.
That's wild to me. And a lot of this information is just found on censuses, right?
Yep, yep. A lot of census, a lot of stories, especially the families who did enslave a lot of people. Most families enslaved 1 to 5, but the ones who did enslave a lot of people, the more wealthy ones, they will tell their stories as if as if things wasn't going to change in a few hundred years. Like it was like they planned on us
Oh,
being
really?
enslaved forever. So the way they tell some of these stories is it's almost prideful of what I did and how I did it. Um, so it's not even like the only ones I'll say that are hidden are the women. It's hard to find the woman doing something bad, even though they definitely partook.
Yeah, because I feel like the only time that we hear about it is when they're like these kind of boogeyman stories, like the Madame
LaLaurie.
Laurie
Yeah.
Laurie. Like her story. I mean, she was a serial killer. Like she was just a murderer.
Yeah.
Like, and that's how her story is so outlandish that we have to tell that because it's ridiculous. But there was people that were doing basically everything but the most extreme things that she did, and that was right. Like her husband left her because he was like she gonna mess my stuff up. Like
Mhm.
I gotta get out of here.
Yeah.
But before that, she was doing everything they were both doing the same thing, and then she took it too far.
Yeah.
Then she kind of like got out of hand, got out of pocket, and was doing too much. So I feel like we oftentimes hear those kind of stories, and we hear men kind of overseer gloating stories about what they would do. But overseers didn't. There was a difference in kind of power dynamic with them as well, too, right? Because they weren't exactly the owners, so they had to follow certain rules.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people forget that it was a chain of command and it was a business.
Yes. Fully. You had the owner, you had the manager, and then you had the chattel. And so like the overseer got paid to keep people in order, to crack the whip, to make sure everybody's doing their job. And sometimes they lived with them, like the one that lived with Boyd. But or sometimes they might stay with their family. But you'll find a lot of overseers living with the
Mm.
plantation owner.
Mm. Yeah, I didn't realize all that. And I think a lot of folks also kind of miss. Have you in your research come across the it was like a pamphlet, I think, or like a little book that like they had like ledger books that were
Yeah.
specific to slavery, and I forget the name of it. It was one that's like famous, or like it taught you how to do everything. Like it went into detail about like
So I think you're talking about.
training techniques or
Yes.
all kinds of stuff.
So what you're talking about is what are the names of? Like I just spoke about them. I just made a whole video about them. Um I remember it was the same folks who did the slave narratives. They found
Right.
someone who interviewed everybody in the early 1930s or during the Great Depression. They found a plantation manual that literally told people, literally started training from as early as 5 years old of how to manage the plantation, everything from the chattel to like actual chattel, like cows and chickens and everything, to how you manage the black people, to how you farm, at what time you should be doing this, to how how do you beat a black person? Like it was that detailed. But yeah, I ran across that. You run across ledgers, as you mentioned, where it people will detail ledgers or diaries, I should say, where people will detail everything. That's what Cy found. How he found out his family was bred was through the ledger that was kept by the woman of the house. So you John Brown has a ledger how bad he used to beat his kids. Like um family Bibles as well. If family Bibles, and if the family was a Quaker, they'll talk about black people as if they're a human, but otherwise they'll talk about us again as if we're mixed in with the cows and the chickens. But it's all
Oh,
kinds of little personal stuff that they keep, and that's the stuff that you won't find online. That's the privatized records that's out there.
so ledgers. I heard you say it, but ledgers were like diaries. Like they had more information in them.
Oh yeah,
I didn't realize that. I'm sitting here thinking like a spreadsheet. Like a. I mean, I'm sure it was also that, but
oh
like
yeah,
they
oh yeah.
detailed everything.
Oh yeah, they'll detail everything. Like that's they'll
Oh shit.
just like I guess if a man owned it, it was a ledger. If a woman owned it, it was a diary. But it was essentially the same thing. They could detail almost whatever they feel like. Hey, this happened today. Or like I said, John Brown's was descriptive. Hey, John Jr. cussed at his mom, so I gave him this many lashes. John Jr. didn't do this at church today, so I gave him this many lashes. Um,
Oh shit.
Same thing with they do that with us, or they can mark that down as all right. So, Joe didn't pick the cotton the way I wanted him, so Joe got this many lives. He got this, this punishment. We put him in this place or whatever the case is. They kept a lot of information outside of what was required to turn into the government.
And so speak on that for a second too, because there were, I think, again, I think folks don't realize the amount of information that the government required from people too
Mhm.
to keep track of these things, because it was all tax at the end of the day. The business was taxed, so they needed certain amounts of information. But what kind of things were the government requiring? Just like how many people there were, or was it more specific, or what you were using them for? Did that not matter?
So, almost any transaction of sale, they need any bills of sales, deeds of gift. They normally require that. They require the information from the slave schedules from 1850 to 1860. Prior to that, you had to tell them how many enslaved black people that you had inside your house.
Mhm.
Um, if you did own an actual farm, how much equipment that you had, how many things were being picked, how many uh it's a agricultural census. That's what I'm trying to think of. But
Right.
the same thing they were looking for in 1890, they were looking for prior to that, but black people were considered with the chattel.
Oh no.
So you had to turn that into the government. Um, any wills that had to be signed had to be witnessed. That's why a lot of the wills are public of enslavers right now. Um, those would be the main things that I'm thinking of. That's off the top of my head. But anything that involved in money and transaction, slave ship manifest, that took a lot of information from the enslaver as well as the enslaved, as far as age, color, sex, even down to complexion, and outside of
Right.
black or biracial, it was you were copper, you were black, you were brown, you were light brown, you were this, that, and the third. So it's 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 a lot out there. It is a lot that's out there from the government that the government had to take in from these enslavers.
Yeah, yeah, and I think it's kind of interesting because the importation slave trade stopped at a certain point, but it still feels as though more black folk kept showing up. Right?
Hmm. Yeah,
Is that fair to say?
yeah.
Because there was an internal slave trade, and then that's when I guess basically just breeding became like parts of it. Have you found that there were because I've always wondered this. Like, I think a lot of people think of agriculture as like the main byproduct, but there had to be that people were the main byproduct. Like, have you ever come across a plantation where the product was slaves?
Yeah. So this normally happened with people who didn't enslave a lot of folks. So again, like
Mm-hmm.
the 1 to 5, they will rent out black people. That's how black people became firefighters. That's how black people became start doing these jobs over the place. So I had a bill of sale that I showed, and it had a list of a bunch of enslaved people, where they were going to, how long they were going for, and the annual price to keep them. Like that's how certain people made their money. That was directly here. You can rent my black people. Make sure that you got to take care of my black people. If there was any defects, that's one thing I came across. If the person got to them and 3 days later the person is sick, also you just sold them a defective product. So you got to go through a whole yeah. Yeah. It's so messed up. Like it's so messed up. But not like people will was renting us out all over the place. That's why we had insurance policies on us. They used to literally just whatever they can do. Hey, go run that to X, Y, and Z, and do it in this amount of time, and it's so much. But yeah, we were the product for everything.
Oh man, that's
And,
crazy. Like,
and then, oh, I'm sorry, I just want to tag this on because I don't know if it's
no,
like a
no,
big
keep
known.
going, man.
I don't know if this is a known fact, but even one thing I came across with women enslavers, especially in the 1850s, was they used to run brothels with enslaved black women. Enslaved black
Oh,
women and supposedly free black women, but a brothel. So that
right.
was one thing where black women had to do everything a man did, but they also had the other quality of they could another service they thought they could provide either through breeding or through something like that. So one thing, yeah, brothels was a big thing in the 1850s. That's why a lot of people,
Wow.
when they see their great grandmothers and they coming out by themselves and they don't know what pops is or anything like that, that's could be one reason outside of obvious of them being enslaved.
Oh, oh man, I didn't even think about that. Somebody's throwing down in the comments because we keep bringing up certain years 1850, 1860, or 1850 to 1860, 1890. A lot of folks tried to do it like with ancestry.com and stuff like that, and it's like 1899. All right, don't there's nothing before that, and they kind of get at this point that I'm sure you've run into. So especially for black folk, like trying to figure out what comes before that, what years should they be looking at? Because somebody's saying like they can't get past the 1800s, or they can't even break into the 1800s, can't get past 1900, trying to get into the 1800s. Like, what years should they be looking for, like, or how many generations back or something like that? Like, so should they be looking for names or places at 1850, or if you could just speak to that for a second?
Got you. So one of the biggest things is trying to get back to 1870. That's going to be the wall that almost every Black American is gonna hit. And right before that would be 5 years prior to that was slavery. If you have any family born prior to 1860, at least, their birthdays are going to be one of the most important things. On the 1870 census, what you want to take from that is who's living around them, in case anybody else is born around that time. You want to take where they're living at down to the county. And so when you start to search things like slave schedules and whatnot, you'll look at you'll use the county where they're living at currently, because a lot of black people didn't move far. We didn't have the means to move as far. Some people stayed right next to the plantation. So 1870 is going to be the big wall. You might run into a small wall around 1900. 1890 population census went up in flames. So it went from millions of names to like 6,200. So that's one
Oh,
big thing that kind of stops. At that point, I say start looking for things like vital records of your family. Um, so birth certificates, death certificates, things like marriage records, anything that may list the birthday or parents. So try to get you over that hump to get you to 1880. So you can try to make your way to 1870. So just any kind of vital records around 1900, um, city directories, even just to get a place of where your family may have lived. I always check newspapers, especially around events in time, such as big riots, race riots, things like natural disasters, such as like earthquakes, the earthquakes that happened in San Fran to the 1919 Red Summer. Like I take
right.
into account those kind of things as well when looking into it. You just got to really explore your options around that. Don't stop looking. I promise you. And also one big thing I always tell people, because a lot of folks like to focus directly going straight back with their grandparents. Check your aunts and uncles, especially if you're using Ancestry, because Ancestry will not pull them automatically, like people that's not directly related to the person. I found grandmothers living with their daughters, but the husband is listed as head of household. So Ancestry doesn't consider mother-in-law as a direct member of the family, and it won't add anything. You have to check yourself and
Oh,
make sure you add those things manually. That's one of the biggest things is check all the branches of your family tree. And if it's something's not pulling automatically, add it manually.
oh, yeah, man. I didn't even think about that because that was a big problem that I ended up having too, was trying to figure out who was living with who, especially
Mhm.
because at the time in these really small towns, like my family's from Marion, Alabama, you could throw a rock across the whole town. So like, I mean, it's one of these little tiny towns that you start to find these names. Like I found my last name, um, like I found the last name of an enslaver that was in the area in that county, but I also found the last name of 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 my of my great my great uncle was in the area. It was a different, or my great aunt was in the area. Is a different last name. So I found that last name. But there was a lot of folks that kind of took on names, like kind of common names, like like the last name they sort of just took whatever, because like the pop a last name in my family is Jefferson, but like we know it's not like
Yeah.
that probably wasn't the name, but
Mhm.
around late 1800s, early 1900s, the Jeffersons start popping up.
Mhm.
And is that anything that you've run into where folks with like their current last name ends up kind of getting mixed into like these, the blacks, the browns, Jeffersons, the Washington, like these common black last names that we all have or think about, like you think that, that's a black name, but it's also sometimes it's just the name of a president. Sometimes it's just the name of,
Yeah.
just somebody, something important, or they skin tone. So have you seen that pop up a bunch?
Yeah, yeah, oh yeah, definitely. Where you have the Smiths. Um, find out granddad was a blacksmith. Yeah, you got the people who are named after their complexion, brown, blacks. Sometimes hey, we got gray hair, we the grays. Um, presidents. I tell people check popular culture back then. It was presidents. You got the Washingtons. I guarantee you, every black family has at least one George Washington in it in some shape or form. Like I got a George Washington English in my family. So presidents. Frederick Douglass is a great example. His name comes from a poem. Like so we took on names, a lot of names to distance ourselves from slavery. Other things were okay. If we're free at some point and we have to find each other, we're going to use this simple last name. We're going to use John, Brown. We're going to use Smith. we're going to use this.
Right.
Some chose names to blend in. A lot of people ran. A lot of people ran, and then enslavers will take out those news adverts looking for them. So I'm looking for such and such. They'll change their entire name. They'll develop a last name. Yeah, my name is John Brown. My name is Joe Brown. My name is John Black. Whatever it was. But there is so many reasons they could have chose their names. Um, it depends on region. The time at the time. I run into it, and when I do, I want to give people a quick tip. Is if you have one of those common last names and you're looking on the population census around 1870, check the neighbors. If they live around a lot of black people, check the neighbors. Like I think on population census there with Bristol, I think there might be a Smith family on there, but that Smith is surrounded by a lot of black people with an Irish last name. With the last name English, it's surrounded by them. But that's the Smith family. That's. But Thomas Cassandra English enslaved 80 something black people. I can imagine where they may have came from. So
Right.
I always check the neighbors, check pages worth. I don't just get what Ancestry give me. I check pages. It might take a little while, but see if there's a common name in that county. Um, like Thomas Cassandra English is on the next page after Bristol. That's the wild thing. Like as soon as you turn the page, there he is. There go the enslaver. There go his wife, his kids, the whole 9 yards. So always, if you have a common last name, getting back to 1870 is a key, and then check neighbors on the population census.
Yeah, I noticed that too when I was looking for myself. Like my last name House, and then seeing my older family's last name of Jefferson, and seeing that kind of pocket stick out. So seeing the enslaver name, found out it's a white guy, enslaver owned. I think it was less than 10 people named House, and then on the census there's two more House families, but then they're surrounded by like 5 or 6 Jefferson families, and it's like those two. It's like those two names ended up at the same time. It's like everybody moved and then changed their last name, but some people didn't change their last name or took on the last name of the enslaver, just moved. Honestly, like some people, like you told the story before, like they moved literally next door. Some people in my family, they moved blocks away. Like not even one block. They moved right down the street to a different farm right down the street. And that happened with me like a bunch. Yeah, there's somebody in the comments saying my last name Washington. I know my people was on. I found a lot of different last names in my family, but my family who are living, they know who they are. Yeah, check with family members and stuff like that about last names. I've found a lot of success with family first names, like common first names. Down the line, everybody names their son Earl at some point. So I know that's kind of a tip off of that, but I didn't. I got to get better at or think harder about the neighbor, the kind of neighbor situation, because people didn't necessarily move too far away from each other.
Right. No, definitely one way. Checking neighbors always big. Utilize the Freedmen Bureau. If y'all like everybody, I want to say everybody family didn't utilize it, but that's just one place to check as well. You might find, your family may have signed a contract to go work somewhere with somebody. My grand aunt, what's Dixon? I think it's my grand aunt. My grand aunt, yeah. My great grand aunt, excuse me. She, the man she married ended up getting paid to work at the plantation where her family was on, which our family was on, I should say. Like there's a full contract with the Hill family, and Chuck. When I talked to Chuck, the man, Thomas Cassandra English grandson, he told me he brought them people up. He said, yeah, people came back. They came and worked on the plantation. They did get paid at the time. I don't know how much, but it's a lot out there. It's a lot out there.
Somebody brought something else up too, and I kind of wanted your perspective on it because you were saying check events and things like that. We the other advantageous thing about having a really common last name or choosing a really common last name is that we looked for each other. So someone in the comments was saying check newspapers and stuff like that because we would take out ads
Yes.
looking for each other, and that might be a way to kind of reverse engineer finding out who took out the ad because of who they were looking for.
Yes.
Right. And did that happen? Was that super common or what have you found with stuff like that?
So it was wild. I had it live sometime last year. And I wish those two people would come back into my live one day. They had the last name English like me, and it was like, hey, my family is from Tennessee. I couldn't think for the life of me where did I see. They brought up the name Coda English, and I'm like, where did I see Coda English? It's not on my family tree. It's not on my cousin's side of the family tree. I cannot find it. So come to find out that newspaper. That's where I saw that when I looked up my family. So Coda English was in Tennessee where they said he was at. And in the newspaper ad, Coda tells his brother's name, his uncle's name, both of his parents, the enslaver, his brother's wife, the enslaver of his brother's wife, the people who kidnapped his uncle, and where they were living at, and how can you reach them again? All in one little newspaper article that got so much information about this. And they took it out 3 times too. They kept looking. They did not stop. They took it out 3 times. So like just they took out, and you find so much information from our people. Like yeah, there's a ton of stuff in documents and people want records and stuff, but those newspaper ads can be gold for people.
Yeah, man. I did. Yeah. Like I didn't realize how detailed that they could really get with them. But yeah, I think a lot of people did just sort of take out these ads, just hoping, because people got sold off, got kidnapped, got all kinds of stuff like happened to these families, and they got broken up or moved around or misplaced or whatever, stolen, taken. And after freedom, people started looking for their family members, looking for their mama, looking for their kids. And their kids might be your great grandmama or, something like that. And you've been trying to figure out who this person is, but going back a little bit further or to like a different spot, you can find more information just from like little newspapers. Did that same thing happen with, I imagine that was kind of like the same thing that happened, not just from enslavement, but, after Red Summer, after these big events, people also got displaced then, so they'd be looking for each other at that moment too, as well. Yes. Be like, we don't know what happened with this person, so I'm gonna take out, little personal ad or whatever it was, kind of looking for people. So, are there, if someone's kind of shooting in the dark, is there, I guess, any tips or any moments in time that stick out to you that like, hey, check records, and even in different cities with this thing that happened or something, or anything that sticks out in your head? I know you said earthquakes earlier, but anything else?
So even I got going back a little bit further. I don't know if anybody ever read like the court cases that involved enslaved people about like there was one where there was a woman trying to cross the border with a black child, a white woman trying to cross the border with a black child, and I think it's a PA, and they freed the mom but kept the baby, and they wanted to cross the border, and the mom tried to fight for her child. In a lot of those cases, black people will lose. But like I would say, check court cases during slavery, especially like around 1865 and going towards the Reconstruction era, and then also going towards the Reconstruction era. Check going towards Texas or any place that seemed to be a little lax on slavery. Mississippi, places like Arkansas, just people tried to move enslaved people the emancipation, they saw the emancipation coming, a lot of people try to move folks. You'll see a lot of women do that back then.
Oh man.
But another thing, earthquake. I think it was an earthquake in South Carolina, late 1800s. A lot of black kids became orphans. A lot of black businesses were taken out. A lot of houses, because our houses weren't built as well. A lot of houses weren't built as well, so those houses came down. What else? The Red Summer, 1919. I mentioned San Francisco. Even things like it's gonna sound wild. Katrina took out a lot. Like
Yeah.
any kind of event like that. There was the Great Flood of Mississippi that took out a ton of stuff. And then also things like the Great Depression that had a harder effect on black people. So many reasons we had to move, and there's hundreds of race riots that happened that forced us out of places. That end up burning bank records and courthouses and all that stuff for whatever they felt like, So, any events. One thing I always do is I'm probably gonna leave a link to it soon. Is the events in time that could affect black people? Just a whole bunch of them. Just to keep a lookout for these type of events, because there's literally so many that's scattered from the 1800s through up to the day.
Yeah. I think of all the I don't even think of the fires or anything like that anymore. I think of all the lakes that people be swimming in, boating on right now that have a whole town underneath it. Like Lake Lanier always sticks out to me. Like there's a whole still whole town, like a Scooby-Doo movie or something, and I think parts of it, and I can't remember if that was Lake Lanier. Parts of it back in as recent as I think it was 2009, 2010. There was a heavy drought, and parts of it dried up, and there was entire buildings that reappeared. The one I was looking at, there was an entire racetrack that reappeared, concession stand, grandstands, everything still there, just eerily preserved. The signs are still up on these buildings. They just removed all of these black people and literally just opened the floodgates and just dump water on this entire town and just built up these things. So a lot of these gigantic man-made lakes that we have, there's entire towns underneath those things. And those are also big moments that fed into the Great Migration and things like that. Have you found any, speaking of the Great Migration, have you found any stumbling blocks with that? Folks are looking for their family. They know that they're from down south. They're looking in Alabama, and suddenly it's like they hit a wall, and their family just kind of, it seems like they disappear.
Yeah. So you'll expect folks living on the East Coast, West Coast, even the black people family that was born in the South that's up in Canada. They will, if they don't know who their grandparents are, they will have a lot of trouble. Because most likely it was the grandparents or the great grandparents that came up here during the Great Migration or moved during that time. But as long as they know, hey, my grandfather's born at least in Alabama, or they're born in Mississippi, that at least gives me somewhere, to look for this name of this person, or hopefully an about birthday. But as long as you know your grandparents and you working your way back, you should be able to find something. I'm not gonna say it's everybody's gonna find everything, but it's not as bad as a roadblock that I've run into. It's something that I've seen either work itself out through, me finding a census, a marriage certificate, a death certificate, or something that to say, hey, their parents were these people and they were from X, Y, and Z. So,
right. Mm-hmm. Oh, that's that actually makes me feel a little bit better, because I know there's some folks especially places that were really popular for the move. Like, I mean, us in Western New York, we know like there's a big black population that all moved here at the same time. Like everybody, grandmama moved to the east side, either Rochester or Buffalo,
Yeah.
all at the same time. We all got that same story. But that also happened in Chicago. That also happened in some. I mean, it's some places out west that all happen at the same time. I think a lot of people think like the Great Migration, they think like just north or south and north, but not necessarily. A lot of people moved out west, and that's why you got family out in St. Louis, but everybody from Alabama, but you have a huge part of your family in Cincinnati or St. Louis or something like that. It's like, yeah, because they moved over there. And then part of y'all moved up to New York, and then but everybody from Alabama or something like that. I've noticed that a lot too. But what is so for Black History Month? Before I let you get out of here, what in your world, what is, I guess, an interesting Black history fact that I feel like we always tell the same stories a lot of the times, and in recent years we've been trying to tell newer stories or different stories or highlight people that we don't hear about, but you get down to like kind of the personal sort of like nitty gritty of not just heroes in a textbook or something like that. So is there anything that you've come across in your research or your studies that you're like, this is a wild story that I don't know if anybody noticed?
Gigi's family. I think that was one of the most wild stories I've ever had. Gigi LaFleur. So we found out that I think it was maybe her third or fourth great grandfather was an African prince. And then he was an African prince. He was captured and brought here to America, and they wanted to see if he could produce gold for him. The thing is, he had to be admitted as a free man. So he ended up being admitted as a free man. I believe he got with a woman who was enslaved. They got together. They had kids and end up being, passed on down to Gigi, who the comedian now. Outside of her, Charlie Page, I think that's his name. Charlie Page. He was one of the first inventors of an airship. Was a black man.
Wow.
And like I think so. He was he invented the airship. He was a lot of stuff that we do now today when it involves like agricultural work or like anything involving plants and stuff. A lot of the ideas came from him. A lot of people don't know. Really? He doesn't get credit for it. A lot of the ideas came from him. So with that, when he made the airship, because he always used to mess with stuff, he was taking it to like a fair or something like that. Somebody robbed him. Took the whole thing, took everything, and then like a year later, the Wright brothers came out with the plane. So tell me something that's not racist, that feel racist. That's that's the one that always gets me. But he was a genius. I did a video on him a long time ago. He was like just an amazing man, and then not only Leslie Ray on here. That's who's I think it's her second great grandfather, but he's also related to a Grammy winning producer as well, who's doing a documentary on him now. Like,
no way.
Yeah, the guy worked with everybody from Tupac to Drake.
That's amazing, man.
I find all kinds of just wild stuff from blues singer Eddie Boyd. He has a top 10 song of Rolling Stones of all time. That's somebody's great grandfather. Like, so just to see, and I'm like, I can look into his story. Oh, he used to work. I see he used to work here. This was around the time that he went down and went to the record label to give him his CD that he made at his house, or his record that he made at his house, and wanted to do like, it's so many good stories. I think a lot of people think all I see is trauma. It's his fair share, but we were so amazing throughout history. The pictures I see, the stories I hear, it's a good feeling. And then when I can share that feeling not only to the person I'm working with, but to everybody else, it is just wonderful.
Yeah, I love like when those kind of stories where you bring up, you're like, hey, do y'all know this person? Or like, hey, this person, guess who I found? And then it's like, I found, your granddaddy, I found your great granddaddy, your great great. And it's like you find these amazing pictures. Sometimes they're in color. You find these pictures and the stuff of these people, and they're doing something amazing. They're standing somewhere, and they're proud, and they're happy, and it's awesome, man. Yeah,
I love it.
like you definitely got to put something together of like that needs to be your next book, man. You need to put something
Yeah.
together of these amazing, like, unsung heroes that are just
I like
regular
that.
people, just these people's. Yeah, that
Yeah.
was my great grandfather did that. That was my great grandmother. She did that. I feel like there's so many people that we could that you could put together and just
There's
this
so
is an
many
amazing story.
stories. Yeah, there's so many stories. There's one resource I have. I don't think people use it. I'll probably just send it to you because you can probably find some on there as well. But they show photos. Some they have. Sometimes they have photos. Sometimes they have stories. Sometimes they just have information. But the ones who have all three, um, I try to talk about them because nobody knows them. It's not like they were all the people in these history, but these are just people grandfathers. These are people who these are the grandmothers. These are
Right.
just collection of just black photos, black stories of just folks people never heard of before.
That's awesome, man. That's
Yeah.
awesome. So before I let you go, plug all the things. Say your name again, where folks can find you. Talk about the project, and anything you got coming up, or any playlists, or anything specific you want people to kind of direct to.
Got you. I'm Walt Way, also known as the former love poet, founder of the Bristor English Project. I help American descendants of chattel slavery connect with an ancestry that is more than just chains and dreams. I am the author of Hidden Fears and Forgotten Courage, which is available on Amazon and right now and Barnes and Nobles. Um, I'm on Instagram. I'm on Twitter. I'm on Facebook. I'm on everywhere that you can find me. Also, be on the lookout for my link tree. I have over 50 resources helping Black people connect with their ancestors for free. I got 3 how tos. I'm on the educational app called Kinder. They have me as one of their creators, where I literally break down from start to finish how I did my own tree with limited information and show you how to use the link tree.
Awesome.
All right.
Awesome, man.
Oh, also
Awesome.
sorry.
Awesome.
Catch me at Burning
No,
Man April 1st. I'll be at Burning Man performing poetry again.
what?
Yeah, second time.
We're gonna talk about that off night. That's amazing. All right, man. Well, thank you so much, Walt. I love having you on. I love talking to you, man.
Thank you.
I'm hopefully some people got some good information about this. This will be up on the podcast on Spotify and Apple Music and all that stuff in the next coming weeks. But thank you again, brother. Love you so much, man. We gotta do this in person
Yes.
eventually.
Oh yeah.
Coming soon.
Definitely. Definitely. Once all this
All right.
snow and go, yeah, I got you.
Yeah, man. All right.
All right, man.
Love you. Peace, man.
See you.
Thank you so much for tuning into the Conscious Environment Podcast. I hope you guys enjoyed that as much as I enjoyed recording it for you. I really do appreciate Walt for coming back on, the founder of the Bristor English Project. Please go check them out. Go check out his website. Go check out his resources. He's got videos that walk you through the entire process on how to, really get the most out of your family tree and really understand it and connect the most that you possibly can. And he walks you right through it. He's not gatekeeping any of this information. So thank you again. If you want to support the show financially, there are Venmo and Cashapp links down below, as well as a bonfire link to our merch site where you can pick up a couple of shirts if you'd like to. If you can't do it financially, I do appreciate just a 5-star review, a download, and some sort of tell your mama. She'll probably enjoy the show. But again, I want to say one last thing. I love you. Go drink water right now. Go drink water right now. Okay, I'll see you later.